Coffee with Toffees.
Let's do this!
Good evening and welcome back to a new episode of Coffee with Toffees, guys. My name is Toffees, bringing you all of the esports news that you need for your day. And I am joined here by my guest today, Skim. Where can they find you on Twitter and how are you doing today?
Hey man, people can find me on Twitter at Skim Gaming, and I'm doing very good today.
Excellent. Nice and I think it's late in the evening for you, very early for us over here in North America. But hopefully that means that we get to actually have some coffee while we talk today. It's been a first. Normally the show is a lot later at night, but I think we should have a pretty good time. So the reason that we are gathered here today, folks, is to talk about the shuffle. But before we do, I should probably send a shout out to our sponsors for the show, Razor and Betway.com. We appreciate you supporting small content creators. Now, that said, the shuffle has been on the tips of everyone's tongue, Skim. It is pretty huge. A lot has happened, and honestly, when I talked to you about doing this show 2 days ago, I did it because you had wrote this article on HGTV. If you guys want to check it out, it's on High Ground TV. It's on the front page, and it was your sort of assessments of what shifts in the scene are going to be coming, and I thought it was good. And then you said, okay, let's do the show. We were going to do it last night at, I think it was like 6 p.m., and we pushed it back for personal reasons. I wanted to go on a date with my wife. And then as we were on this date, Twitter goes crazy bones, and like not just crazy bones, but absolutely insane. And it was this big shift over Aoi with EG, but tucked into there were nuggets of truth coming out of Vlad about some movements by S4, some stuff going on with KuroKy in Germany. So I think a lot of folks missed out on the fact that there were a lot of other changes kind of hinted at the same time that this Aoi thing was going on. So we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to run through the rumors, and then I want to talk about the article that you put up as well as your sort of tweet today in regards to that. So first things first, what were you doing last night when the for lack of a better word, forgive my French, shit hit the fan?
It's actually really funny because I'm still kind of jet lagged, and I was sort of sleeping, but I woke up like really early. I think when shit hit the fan, it was like 4 a.m. my time. And I woke up at like 5, and I just like checked Twitter and Reddit, and it was just blowing up everywhere. And I was just so confused because this is like the least. Well, I mean, you read my blog, right? I didn't expect EG to change.
Right.
I did have a little bit of a suspicion that if they were going to change, I suppose it could be Aoi, but it was like no way they're going to do anything. But yeah, so.
Well, I also thought, I do want to take a second to commend you on your clairvoyance. I'm going to make my head bigger so you're not as differentiated. Your clairvoyance to know, to mention that if there was going to be an issue, it was going to be with Aoi. Because honestly, a lot of us, I think, thought that EG was in great shape, that there were no issues whatsoever. So you did mention in the article after DAC, Aoi was having sort of trouble fitting in personality-wise. Can you tell us a little more about like where you got that information, or just sort of what that meant?
There was an interview with, I think PPD gave it to Hotbit, I believe. I think it was even during DAC, and he mentioned things, or like I think also like in addition to that, there was also I think AY blogging or something, but there was something about how the dynamics between him, between AY and the team were still something they have to figure out, because apparently AOI was like talking too much, or like talking too much about like things that weren't relevant about the game. Something in that regard that they just didn't really like, that he didn't just fit in as smoothly as they kind of wanted him to be. Right. But at the same time, it was their first tournament, right? So obviously things were not working out perfectly at that time. So that was the only thing that made me think, I guess if this hasn't been completely figured out yet, maybe this is something they would consider. But I just assumed that this had been worked out at this point.
And some folks in Twitch chat, because I normally when I do introduction, I talk about who our guest is. If you guys don't know Skim, he's been a guest here. He's a regular on the show. He wrote for Gozu for a long time, and I think he wrote some other websites as well. He writes for HGTV as well as independently at the moment. But Skim has been somebody who's pretty well connected to the scene and follows it very, very closely. He also helps boost my European scene knowledge since mine's not the strongest in the world. So we do appreciate you being here. Real quick, are there any other big projects you've been working on lately, or are you still just sort of doing the freelance deal?
No, still doing the freelance thing. I mean, I was at TA5 for Vulcan. I did a bunch of interviews there, so that's how I kind of stay sort of relevant in the scene for now.
Fair enough. All right, so there you go. Now I've given you guys justification and relevancy because apparently that's important. Now, let's go back to this talk we had. You mentioned Aoi and sort of not fitting in. And this is something I don't think we think about enough in the scene, is the idea that it's different than traditional sports, right? When you play soccer or you play football or you play something else, you don't have to spend every waking, living, breathing moment connected to the person you're playing with. And I actually said this when I spoke with Complexity Gaming. We did an interview for Al Jazeera and some other companies as well. And we talked about the dangers of the fast transfer of information as well as the constant connection in Dota. The idea that if you don't like a teammate, you're still connected in Skype for 6 to 7 hours a day. You still have to play with them constantly. You still have to talk to them constantly. Whereas in football, maybe you guys have an interaction, you don't get along well, but at the end of the day, you put your pads on, you stand across the field from each other. And I think that that's something that really leads into a discussion we'll have later, which is why are captains making decisions instead of owners and coaches, like you see in traditional sports? And I think that a lot of that comes into it. How big an impact do you think that adjustment had on this change? Do you think that that was a big portion of it, or do you think that it's just Arteezy is a better player and they want the best to win?
I don't think that they had much of an issue with AY at this point. I think it's more that they feel more confident with Arteezy going into the next season. It just feels like, hey guys, Arteezy is available again, basically, and I mean, he is a really beast of a player, and Fear has proven to be also really strong as a support. So I just feel like they were just like really confident that if they can acquire Arteezy, that they can become even stronger than they have been so far. So I don't necessarily think that in this case, the issue with AY has been, well, I don't think there has been an issue with AY necessarily in this case. But yeah, what you did say about how communication and these sort of relations, they're much more important in esports, or in Dota in this case, than they are in other sports. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Now, to address the EG thing directly, if any of our listeners on the podcast or anywhere else are like, what's this? We're talking about Aoi. What happened? Just so that you guys know, last night, shit blew up. It went crazy. Basically, Aoi tweeted, "Win TI, kicked off team, I hate people." And it sort of, everything went nuts from there, which was considered a leak. At the same time, or actually I think right before that, Arteezy said on his stream that he was joining EG. So that was sort of the beginning of this chaos. And then nothing happened. There was no statement. The team didn't say anything. And then 20 or 30 minutes later, I think that I saw another tweet from Aoi that said, "Can somebody please just confirm this so people stop calling me a liar?" A lot of folks have been getting hacked. In fact, PPD's account right now is in the process of being hacked. You can see the post coming out from him. Yeah. So a lot of players are being hacked. People are like, well, he's hacked. It's not real. He's a liar, whatever it is. And they sort of started to almost turn against him in a weird way. Because in the past, and you can probably verify this, Skim, during big shuffles, players have trolled the fans. We've seen it before. They've made comments and jokes to sort of imply changes that didn't actually happen. And I get that. They're having fun with us. That said, Charlie, about half an hour later, came out with a personal tweet from him, and kudos to him for doing that, where he said that he didn't want to say go against the team, but he wanted to make sure that the cards were on the table. And he actually put up, I'll pull it up here for you guys so you can read it. "Rather than have people speculate or message players for answers, I'm going to go ahead and announce the new EG roster right now. Sumail, Universe, Fear, PPD, and Arteezy. Yes, Curtis was removed from the roster. The rest of the players decided that the above roster was what they wanted to go forward with. Personally, I am deeply affected by this, and I'm very sad to see Curtis go. I've known him the longest out of anyone on the team. He's one that originally asked me to be the manager for Pot Bottom years ago, and I cannot state enough how depressed I am to see him go. I cannot imagine how much worse he feels. Professionally, I trust the judgment of the captain and the other players. I will not make roster decisions on their behalf, and I will not force players to play on rosters they don't want to play on. EG is deeply grateful to Curtis for what he has helped contribute, and will continue to support him in whatever he decides to do and wherever he decides to go. I say this both for myself and on behalf of the organization. So, Charlie releases a tweet. It's apparently the official statement, since as far as I know, we still haven't seen anything from the organization. Is this the right way to handle releasing a player?
Not necessarily. I mean, in an the ideal situation is AOI doesn't tweet anything, and EG officially first announces something, and then we see the reaction. But obviously, I mean, this is esport. We're not trained professionals who are trained to be to handle PR correctly, right? So it was obvious that AOI was the first one to mention anything. I do kind of think that there could have been an official announcement from EG, but at the same time, I mean, I've been in this business for a while, and I'm still waiting on a few organizations to actually announce, oh, hey, we actually dropped our roster.
Right.
Mouse Sports last year didn't do it. I'm pretty sure that EG also didn't release any official statement before the AC that they dropped actually Arteezy and Zai. So this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, you got to wonder, though, how long until it stops happening, right? I mean, and Nahaz was here in the chat a little bit earlier talking about this is a business, and we'll get to that in just a second. And his points were simple. It was, this is a business, and it sucks to be kicked off a team. And my heart goes out to Aoi because he's a good guy, and he is somebody that a lot of people love. But at the end of the day, if the team thinks they can win more majors with Arteezy, they only have 3 weeks to make a choice, make a business decision, march forward. My problem with this is the fact that, Nahaz said, well, there's not really a press release system. There's not a way to sort of distribute the information. We haven't established that yet. But you wrote for Gozu. There's 4 websites, I think, maybe 5 that generally distribute Dota 2 news wide. There's 2 or 3 talk shows tops. Why aren't these organizations writing up a 1-paragraph statement that they send to these organizations and say, hey, big news coming out August 14th, 10 p.m., look for it. And tell the players at the same time that they send out the press release. I mean, to me, that seems like the best way to head it off. Put it on your website, because my frustration with the Aoi situation, and Aoi, I love you. I know you're going to land on your feet, is not that he was kicked. I get that it happens. Teams have to make changes. That's the brutal reality of esports getting this big. My anger is that he was kicked, he was dropped, he probably felt terrible, and then he was called a liar. People accused him of having his Twitter hacked. He was just bashed basically on the internet for half an hour while everyone said, well, there's no official statement, so it can't be real. And that's what seems surreal to me.
Yeah, I agree. It was not handled properly. I feel like they should have been... I mean, they should have expected his reaction, right? Like, can they really expect him to not comment on him being kicked? Like, I think the moment that you tell a player, oh yeah, by the way, we're dropping you even though we just won TI, they have to be prepared that he's definitely going to make a statement unless they specifically ask him not to and he agrees, So, yeah, that definitely should have been handled better. And I agree, there's so many ways to do it. There's so many ways to properly announce this sort of thing. But, yeah, as we both pointed out, sadly, it doesn't happen at all in esports. Somebody in chat mentioned that, oh, I like how Cloud9 did it, or Cloud9 did it properly at least, but no, actually they didn't, because the first one to announce it was also Misery on stream, and only because he said so on stream, both the owner and the manager were like, oh yeah, by the way, thanks for all the players, for your time. So no, this is also not the way to do it.
Yeah, so I think that that's a shortcoming, and we talked about this a little bit before you got here, the idea that esports is in its infancy, right? Traditional sports have years and years and years of infrastructure behind them, and we're sort of developing, basketball started by shooting, I don't know, what was it, oranges into some sort of stupid basket on a pole, and over the years became the refined sport that we know. Esports is working its way there. Next year, I'm sure it'll be better, but this is the situation that we're dealing with now. So, real quick, Arteezy for Aoi, do you think it's the right choice? I mean, because Fear has to play support now. Like, we haven't seen Fear play support since, what was that? Like, God, how long? I mean, that was a while.
It was like 2 years ago, I think.
Like 2 years ago.
I think there was a squad that didn't make it to TA3, or like just an iteration before that. To be fair, at the time, people really thought that he was a really beast of a support, just because he played really well. The thing is, I think he has even bigger potential to become an even better support now, just because at the time he also had to be the captain of the team, of a really weak team, actually. No offense to EG at that time, but EG at the time was really weak. So he had to shoulder a lot of burden and still play well. So I think, I mean, we're talking about Fear, right? He's like one of the best one of the best players Dota has ever seen. So him transitioning to support is kind of like a Zhao 8 situation. Zhao 8, usually known as like the mid or the offlaner, a very great captain, and now he's playing support for LGD and he's doing a good job. So I think it can definitely work out. And as you said, or as you quoted in Haas, they have still a lot of time to figure all this stuff out, right? They have made this transition really early on. They have made it official now, and they can work now on these issues. Like, they have so much time to properly work Fear into this role if they want to.
That's true. And I guess now it's time to do it. And I will say, a lot of folks have tweeted out and said kudos to PPD for making the choice early, making sure that it got out while it could be, or while he had time to find another team. And, LD talked about this is a danger. They could have sidelined Aoi until almost the deadline and then kicked him off the team. So there's a danger there. I think the need for possibly contracts early, but that I think is a different show, but something to keep in mind. Now let's continue with the rumors, and I think that we've pretty much exhausted the EG thing. General consensus, and I'll side here with Skim, and I'll say that it was done the wrong way. I don't disagree with the choice. A lot of folks are saying, well, Fear can't play the carry position. Well, I'll tell you what. As far as I'm concerned, Fear can do anything that he wants to. The guy's been around forever. He knows the game inside and out. If anyone can adjust, he can. Plus, I'm going to assume that not hitting the stop attack button all the time is probably going to take some stress off of his digits, which may be another impetus for making the change. So that's something to consider. Now, the other big question for EG, and I wonder if you know anything about this because you do have hands with some of the players, is a lot of folks are talking about, can Samael and Arteezy play on the same team? Can this many egos exist? Now, Arteezy did say, I believe it was Arteezy that said it, that there were a lot of egos on Team Secret, and it was a struggle sort of to get along sometimes. In fact, I think he said on his stream. Do you think he's going to have the same problem in EG?
It's actually funny because now that now that people start bashing EG, they keep like retweeting PPD's old tweets. And after they dropped Arteezy, he tweeted out one less ego, one more championship or whatever. That's one after they won the AC or something. I don't know. I feel like yeah, that's a definitely relevant question, but at the same time, if somebody was going to ask that question, it's probably going to be PPD and Fear, right? When they thought about acquiring Arteezy. That's probably the first thing they thought about. Can we actually pick up Arteezy and still be a functional team? And if they believe that it can work out, I just have to assume that it will, because I think that out of all people, PPD and Fear would be smart enough to not do the same mistake again. So if they truly believe that this can work out, I just have to assume that it will.
Fair enough, and I agree with you. I think that PPD and Arteezy are two people who especially take what they do very seriously and would not jeopardize that for any reason other than they believe it was the right choice. So we can level our hate at them, and that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of vitriolic tweets, a lot of posts aimed at EG over the next couple of weeks, because Aoi is a fan favorite. People love him. The Disney memes are insanely popular. I think that Fwash video that involved him was one of the most popular ones put up in a long time, and I think that will inspire hate, but at the end of the day, it's just a business, boys and girls, and as much as we hate it, as much as we see selling out, as much as you maybe say, I don't want to see sponsors on my favorite shows, I don't want to see players kicked off of teams, if we want $18 million prize pools, this is a symptom of the disease that we're sort of creating. So byproduct of our growth is that we're going to see this sort of stuff happen more and more. So that's the big confirmed one, is that the Aoi is gone, Arteezy is out. We mentioned a little bit earlier, for those of you who didn't know, C9 did officially disband. We saw the confirmation tweet from Jack that they are no longer a Dota 2, or their Dota 2 team as it stands at the end of TI is no longer in existence. However, he also confirmed that they are not leaving Dota 2, and I did speak with Conrad, the manager, and he said that they are working on rebuilding the team. So, do you have any insights on where they could look to try and find themselves a team for this next? Is it going to be majors, or are they going to be looking down the line for a year or two?
I think if you're Cloud9, you definitely want to look down the line. Like, you want to plan long term, because Cloud9 is one of those sponsors that can afford to plan long term, right? They don't have to, we're just going to acquire a team for TI. No, they can support a team throughout the whole year, and they want to support a team for a whole year, especially given how successful their previous squad was. So I think they definitely want to build on that. They have a lot of momentum going on for them right now. If you look at other teams, for example, Complexity at TI2 was huge. The squad was very well liked. But after they dropped the team, they withdrew from Dota, and they kind of had to build their reputation in Dota again, right? So C9, if they're smart, they just immediately stick around and just immediately pick up the team. Who I don't have a clue who they're gonna pick up. But just my assumption is that it would be easy for them to build their team around one of their former members, meaning one of the 5 players that is going to go his own way. It's probably easier for them to build around a player that they already have worked with, that they already know. Say, for example, Eternal Envy. I mean, Eternal Envy is a guy that attracts a lot of fans. He's the previous captain of the team, so just out of convenience, it could happen that they could build a team around him, but at the same time, it really just depends on the team constellations, because odds are, I mean, I'm not saying that he is, but say Eternal Envy was to team up with Puppy, then of course they would go to Secret instead of Cloud9. So
Right.
it's a tricky thing right now, just because people are still trying to figure out who they want to team up with, and then different people have like different opinions on which organization they want to work for, right? So for example, Havos probably wants to work with Navi again, but you know. We'll
Right.
see.
Yeah, and I think that there's the whole Navi CIS thing is still up in the air, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But yeah, I'm glad the C9 is not leaving, and I think that you make a good point with the complexity argument that you sort of have to rebuild traction after you leave. You can't just come back. I mean, complexity, I guess we could say they did well. They came back. They got to TI within a year. But they had to build, right? Like when Complexity first signed the new team, we had them on the show, and nobody sort of knew who they were. They didn't have a lot of respect. And we sort of had to watch them earn it over the last 6 to 8 months versus having that brand. And C9's brand is a good brand. I think it's a fan favorite brand. It's a brand that wins second place a lot. It is, to me, they remind me like the Chicago Cubs, right? This brand that, if you guys are North American, you'll know what I mean. They're sort of this lovable loser brand, if that makes sense. Like you love them because they always do pretty good, but they never quite take home the championship. And the fans are fervent. And I think the Cloud9 fans are some of the best fans in the world. So I'm curious to see what they choose to do with that, and whether those fans are fans of EE and the crew that were there, or if they are fans of the organization itself. So curious to see how that goes. Now, other rumors that are going around, and this came out from Vlad and some other folks confirmed some tweets or sent some stuff out there that Secret is dead. Are you of the opinion that Secret is donezo?
Well, I am almost 100% certain that the brand is going to stick around, just because I feel like if Puppy wants to build a team, he definitely wants to be with Secret. I mean, there wasn't like a really huge reason for him to build the Secret brand in the first place, right? Because he didn't agree with how organizations contract the players. So I think that no matter what team Puppy's going to build around himself, I feel like he's definitely going to want to try to put it under the Secret banner. I mean, they literally just acquired a guy to back them up. I mean, I don't think the guy has been around for more than half a year. I could be wrong right now. I don't have it completely right behind me, but their sponsor, their investor, the Turkish guy, he's very willing to actually build this brand into something bigger. So I feel like Secret as a brand is definitely going to stick around, but the squad itself is definitely done. So I mean, we have Arteezy being gone, confirmed. Zai is going back to school, confirmed. As for KuroKy and Puppy are kind of left, but there's strong rumors that S4 is going back to Alliance, and also strong rumors that even Puppy and KuroKy are going to split it up.
Right. So let's talk first about the Zai thing. You talked to Zai. I think you actually did an interview with him where we have confirmation that he was going back to school. So tell me about that interview. When you talked to him, was that after DAC that he said he was thinking about going back after TI?
Yeah, it was at I talked to him during ESL 1. ESL 1 Frankfurt, so basically 2 months ago. And it really caught me off guard, because I asked one of these usual questions, what's it going to be like after TI? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm probably going to go back to school. And I'm like, what? So yeah, he really caught me off guard then, and he was definitely determined to just focus on school for like 9 to 10 months to make sure that he just graduates, basically, or just, finishes high school or whatever, and then can focus full-time Dota, because so far he has sort of been juggling both And I mean, if you play for a top tier team, you're traveling a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're traveling, you're boot camping, whatever. You're practicing first. He couldn't do it. He couldn't focus on school, which is why he just went for takes.
Well, it sounds like Skype is losing a little bit of your connection. So I'm going to give it a second to reconnect us. It's time for us to take a commercial break anyway. So we will run our commercial, guys, and then as soon as we get back, we'll continue talking. We're going to finish talking about Zai going back to school. We're going to cover S4 and his plans for where he's going, as well as Kuro and his rumor of an all-German team, including Fata and some others. So that's next up on the docket. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. You are watching Coffee with Toffees.
Razer Comms is a free all-in-one communication tool that allows you to stay in touch with friends both in and out of the game. With features such as friendless, groups, mobile SMS forwarding, and call notifications, Razer Comms is a communication solution for the dedicated gamer. Razer Comms' minimal in-game overlay has a panel that grabs all your messages and lets you see who is speaking in a voice call without interrupting your game.
Now I'll always know who's breathing into the mic.
It's always me.
By pairing Razer Comms Mobile with your PC, your friends can call you, no matter where you are.
All right, welcome back, guys. We gotta do what you got to do. Let's talk Skim. How's your connection coming through?
Hey,
there we go.
Is this better?
We are good. We're back.
Sweet.
Skype, man. I'll tell you what. Little side docket for you guys. I was at TI, and one of my roommates at the hostel I stayed at was a programmer for Skype. Interestingly enough, and
Did you flame him?
it was a her, and we had a nice long chat about how frustrating it is that we have to use Skype. And she was like, why don't you use a competitor? And I was like, well, because everyone uses Skype. 60%, 70% of business nowadays is not product, it's adoption. And everyone's adopted Skype. What are you going to do? And then we talked about coding and IP masking. And apparently these were some issues they hadn't talked about before. So hopefully it gets to the main office. It would be nice.
Did you get the stone rolling?
I hope so. God, I hope so. That said, let's get back on track. Zai is going back to school. That is almost 100% confirmed, at least by him. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to change. MSS said he was going back to school, and then he was playing on Archon, so who knows if this will stick or not. That said, let's talk about S4. Now, a lot of rumors are flying around about what's going to happen to S4, as we're pretty sure Secret will be leaving. S4 is being rumored pretty aggressively by multiple sources to be headed back to Alliance. Do you give credence to this rumor?
Yes, I 100% believe that this is going to happen. I mean, yes, my mom just did come into the room. I didn't hear her because I have earplugs in, I have my earphones in, so whatever. I 100% believe that this is going to happen because Pycat actually leaving Alliance was said really early on. I believe they decided on even like before or right after the TI qualifiers anyway. I just think that with this major system coming up, what you want to do is you just want to build a team where you feel comfortable progressing together as a team, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's easier for a person like S4 to progress with people that he's already been successful with, that he feels comfortable around with. Like, he's really good friends with all of the Alliance players still. So, I mean, chances are it's not going to happen because of some nuances. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he gets convinced by Puppy to stay around after all, but I'm, let's say 90% sure that it's going to happen.
Okay. You said 90% sure?
Yeah, 90%.
Okay. I would agree with that. I think it seems like a choice that would not be bad for S4. It seems like Alliance definitely needs someone like S4 back on the team. And with Secret disbanding quote unquote, it seems like the right choice, especially with a 3-week window. And guys, we're 15 days away from the window closing, so choices have to be made quickly. Next big rumor that's going around, and I do have this. This was mentioned, I think, by a couple of people. Theban, or 1337, if you will, mentioned it on his stream. It was then brought up by some independent sources to me as well, that KuroKy is forming a all-German team with RMN and Fata. Have you heard that rumor as well?
I only know that he's trying to build a German roster with Fada. If RMN is included or not, I have no idea.
Okay.
But I mean, RMN is an old friend of theirs, or rather, RMN has, like, I don't know, played plenty of times with both of them. even like in competitive games, because he's like the go-to stand-in for both of them. Like if Fada or KuroKy needed a stand-in for one of their teams, they usually just asked RMN. So it wouldn't be too far off. But the thing is, when I wrote the blog and I thought about this rumor, I already said like it doesn't make much sense to me just because there's not enough German talent. And I said that if they want to build a German team, I feel like they need Black for it.
Right.
Because I don't think you can find enough German talent. Like you need three really strong players, right?
Right.
You need a carry, you need an offlaner, and you need another support. And especially support-wise, there's really not enough talent in Germany to find good supports right now. So
now, do you think that this is a byproduct of the experience at TI? I mean, at TI, you were there. I mean, you got to see the grand finals. You got to see that every time that EG made a play, the entire stadium started chanting USA, USA. Now, that is not to say that every member of EG is from the US. They are not. But they became like this great North American hope, and the fan base sort of came with it. Do you think that there is a benefit to these players to create regionally based teams to build fan bases instead of sort of having these hodgepodge across Europe sort of deals?
I mean, no, not really. If anything, Secret had more fans because they were this mix of nationalities and the big superstars, right? If you were to build a German team, sure, you have like a German fan base, but what's the German fan base compared to, say, if you were to team up with Eternal Envy, right? If you were to team up with Eternal Envy, you get all these international fans as well. True. I think the bigger benefit of having a team full of just one nationality is that it's easier to grow and progress, especially for KuroKy. I feel it's easier for him to be the big authority, be the guy be the captain, be the leader, be the unquestionable. Like nobody's gonna question his authority when there's an all German team because everybody respects KuroKy in Germany. So I think that's a bigger motive behind building an all German team, to find a team that he can form and shape. I mean, if we look at his last German team, Mouse Sports, like 2 years ago, he turned Fada, Pass, and, well, I guess Alex as well, into competitively viable players back at the time. Like, Pass and Alex, nobody knew about them. They were, quote-unquote, not good at all. And Fada was still this young, developing mid-talent, basically, that nobody really respected that much. And he turned all of them into competitively viable players. So I think that if there is somebody that can take 5 or 4 Germans and turn them into a team, it's KuroKy, but at the same time, I don't think there's enough talent right now.
Do you think it's time for KuroKy to step out and become a captain, sort of run his own team? I mean, he's somebody that I've been watching for a long time. I think I learned to play support watching KuroKy replays. Do you think it's Kuro's time? Do you think this is the right choice for him? If this is indeed what he's doing, which we don't know for sure.
I think it's definitely the right time for him. But at the same time, he's also done it before, right?
True.
Like, he's done it plenty of times, so it's not like, oh, finally I can become the captain. It's more like, maybe I should be captain again. You know, I feel like after 2 years, I guess it has been 2 years with Poppy on a team. Maybe it's just gotten to a point where he feels like, I think maybe we should go separate ways again, because obviously this doesn't really seem to be working. I mean, they haven't really been too successful, except for that 1 year with Navi.
So I agree, and I think that the 2 years he's matured a lot. We've seen his play change and the way that he's sort of worked with the teams. I stand by, I think this is the right time, but is it the right team? And that's, I think, his biggest challenge is what that's going to be. Let's talk about, real quick, London Conspiracy. This is just one that popped onto my table a couple of hours ago. A team that has been sort of up and coming and working their butts off to break through. I heard that they are staying together, potentially one roster change, but that they might be leaving London Conspiracy as a sponsor. So I know there's a lot of organizations out there shopping right now, and this could be one of the first issues. And I wonder, let's talk about this real quick, Skim. You were there in Seattle. You saw, as I'm sure I did as well, a lot of owners of organizations and people who didn't own Dota teams but have brands that were sort of there at the event hanging out. I don't want to say that they were headhunting, but it felt like there was maybe some preparation.
It definitely felt like it.
Yeah, it did. Okay, it was pretty brutal. It felt like there was a massacre waiting to happen. So do you think this is going to be the first of maybe a couple of these shifts where you see team rosters, not in their entirety, but in their majority, leaving a current sponsor and going to maybe a greener field as we look at the shuffle? Because there was a lot of organizations that were there and I'm not that informed on owners, right? Like, I don't talk to them regularly, that I could still see out there shopping. So there was probably a lot more I didn't even notice.
I definitely can see this happening because there's like a lot of good, really good organizations out there that want to pick people up and that are, interested in Dota 2 as well. But at the same time, no offense to London Conspiracy, but if you're Team Solo Mid, for example, like a really prestigious brand in like CSGO and League of Legends, and even Hearthstone for a bit, if you're Team Solo Mid, do you really want to, like, is London Conspiracy really the team that you want to have, like, as your first Dota 2 team?
Right.
Probably not. Like, no offense, they're really talented, yes, and I really like them, but this is not really the team that they're looking out for, right? And I feel like this is like a really difficult step for a lot of sponsors out there that are not in Dota yet. They're just like, they want to make a splash, but are there really enough teams out there to make a splash with? Right now, yes, there are, because of the roster shuffle, Right. But existing teams such as London Conspiracy, even 4AC, 4AC apparently does have a big sponsor coming up. But London Conspiracy, I don't really foresee a big sponsor picking them up.
Okay. Well, now let's talk about the other stuff you sort of mentioned. There's a team, Virtus.Pro. They did very well at the International. I think better than a lot of folks, or myself at least, expected them to do. I thought Empire would be the CIS team that emerged on top of the CIS pile, but Virtus.Pro played very, very well. You wrote a little bit about VP. What do you think? What do you think their process is going to be going forward?
Well, I talked to a few people, none of them from VP, but I talked to a few people that know a bit about VP and know them as well. And they were all convinced that VP was going to stay together because VP as a team, not only do the players understand each other as friends, but they also understand that they've grown a lot ever since they formed in late 2014, I think, or early 2015, I guess. They understand that they have potential to become even stronger because in the time, like, how the way they've progressed so far is really impressive. Like, the people mentioned it, or I think Merlini was it at the panel, like, this used to be Virtus.Pro, right? But no, this is Virtus.Pro at this point because they're really strong right now. Every one of them has evolved into a really strong player in his position. FNG is such a strong captain. I heard a rumor, like, after I published my blog, a few people approached me like, dude, didn't you hear that Havos is going to join them? And I'm like, I hope not. I really hope not, because I really want this team to stay together.
Yeah, they seem like they're developing well. Now, that does bring us to the Havos point. A lot of folks were talking about Havos and what's going to happen. I know that one of the Na'Vi players checked out of the hotel and left the day after they lost. Was that Havos or was that Seneko? Do you remember?
Since I saw Havos, like, after the event, I guess it has to be Seneko, yeah.
Okay.
But at the same time, I should mention, though, that this happens quite regularly.
Absolutely.
Like, every year after the teams get eliminated, there's at least, like, one or two players that just, like, fly home because they don't want to stay around.
So that does make sense. Now, there is a lot of rumors that Havos is not happy with his situation at Na'Vi. Do you think what team do you think he's likely to land on, or do we have any indication whatsoever where Havos might go?
I heard that apparently a few Vega Squadron people are interested in playing with Havos. Vega Squadron did just say that, oh no, we don't have any roster changes planned, but, that's just some PR stuff that you just pull out, right? I mean, at this point, as long as nothing is confirmed, you're obviously going to say that. But quite frankly, I'm still a bit stunned because I assumed that he was going to stay with Na'Vi just because he's been with them for so long. They understand each other very well. I believe that he even lives really close to the headquarters of Na'Vi or whatever. Like, his apartment is really close to wherever the headquarters is. So,
okay.
I feel like he's very deep rooted into Na'Vi.
Seneko?
No, Havos.
Havos, that makes sense. So, and then here's my question then. A lot of folks were also talking about Dendi's future. Dendi is a very popular player. You could argue that his fan-based value or his popularity value was a lot higher last year, especially after the free-to-play came out, things like that. He's a great player. He's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, when we saw him take off the pudge and sort of do his thing at the All-Star game, the crowd went wild. Like, everyone, the crowd still loves Dendi, and I think that is a truth that cannot be argued. As far as the face of Dota goes, Dendi has been and will probably be one of those faces for a long time. Is it time for him to leave Navi? There's rumors that he's been talked to or he's considering it. Do you think that this is actually going to happen, or is the brand too intermingled? Dendi is Navi and Navi is Dendi.
I think it would definitely be a bigger loss for Navi to lose Dendi than it would be for Dendi to not be with Navi anymore. I think he should leave Navi, or rather, that I don't think that he and Havos should play together. Like, they should at least try not playing together at this point, because, and I explained this in my blog, but I feel like that Dendi was able to flourish under Puppy's leadership, or under a leadership. And I don't think that, as long as Havos and Puppy can play together, I think that Dendi needs Puppy to become the kind of mid that we all fell in love with, right? He said it himself after TA4, I believe, that he had issues be the mid player that he wants to be, because he had to shoulder a lot more stress and a lot more leadership and a lot more responsibility. Whereas if he was to team up with Puppy again, he could just be the mid player, be the guy that just goes for those plays, be Dendi again, you know. And I feel like if it forces him to split with Havos, I hope he does it, because I would really love to see the old Dendi again.
I think all of us would. And I think that the All-Star match proved that. I think that picture that was posted on Reddit of Puppy and Skim looking at each other, Puppy and Dendi looking at each other, was hilarious and also, kind of moving. And I think the running meme on Reddit and everywhere else that, we keep seeing pictures of the old Navi roster going up and Puppy and Dendi together with the "it feels" sort of deal, I think it is true to a lot of fans' opinions. So I think that you're right. I think that Dendi has been disserviced by staying with Navi for the year. I think that he's lost some of his brand power, and hopefully he makes a comeback, because if you've ever met the man or seen him or been around him in person, it is impossible not to love him. The kid is infectious. He is happy. He literally, you can verify this. You've met him before as well, I believe. Just like shaking his hand, it's like he genuinely is happy to meet every single person that he meets, every single fan, every single time. And I think that that's a really, really cool thing to see in players. It's something you don't see often. Though I will say this, and this is a side note. Arteezy gets a bad rap, right? He's somebody who's often considered very egotistical, kind of cocky. But I saw that kid... that man at this point, because everybody's growing up and making millions of dollars, so we're all adults now. I saw that man stand outside in the rain on the red carpet after his team was eliminated and sign autographs for an hour. Every single fan that came by, he made sure they had an autograph, and that's something that I don't think we see that side of Arteezy very often. So I did want to make sure that I mentioned that, because that was kind of a cool thing to see behind the scenes. Are there any other shuffles that we sort of need to talk about? Rumors that everybody's got on their plates right now, or do you think we covered most of it? Ice. There's one we want to talk about.
Ice. Yes, please talk about this, because...
So there's all kinds of weird rumors about Ice. The fact that I believe it was...
I think Misery said something in that regard.
Yeah, it made a comment that they were going to have was it Eastern offlaner? Is that what he said?
Like Asian offlaner or whatever.
And that's sort of... Okay, so Misery said that there's going to be an all-star team, including an Asian offlaner in his stream. Everyone went crazy and said Ice. Do you think that Ice is going to be leaving his current position, and do you think that he would fit into an all-star team like that? Uh-oh, internet connection problems, so we look like... I asked a question as we lost Skim, so we're going to try to get him back. But that is the rumor going around, is that Misery and Ice may be connected, but again, we have no idea where that's going to go. There's lots of rumors flying around that, and we're not going to confirm anything, because this is not a rumor-based show necessarily. I kind of just wanted to talk about what we do know versus what we don't know. I will also say this, guys. September 1st is around the corner, and for those of you who might not know, September 1st is not officially a statement. I haven't seen a press release about it, but I've had it confirmed by multiple teams. The deadline for putting in the final rosters. So basically, if you don't have your roster in locked by September 1st, then there is no way that you can have your team in the majors. So that's very fast. I sent a message to a couple of captains asking them, do we think that this is enough time? Do we think that this is okay in terms of getting your teams together, or is 3 weeks just too short for this sort of functionality? I haven't received a lot of responses yet. I think everybody's really caught up in sort of where they're going and what they're doing with all of this. It's going to be difficult. So while we wait to see if Skim can get himself reconnected, let's talk a little bit about an opinion. I'll give you some opinion piece here, and that is the struggle that is going on. And I think Aoi and and PPD sort of brought light to this, that captains are making roster calls versus traditional sports. And that's something that we don't see a ton of. In traditional sports, the owners, the managers, they make the calls. Yes, players have influence, but I can tell you right now that Peyton Manning has not once ever had to say, hey, this is who I do or don't want on the team. And I think that that is something that is becoming a challenge for players to deal with. What do you guys think? And I can ask the real question. Do you think that it's fair that the captains have to make these calls? All right, so I did just get a message from Skim on Skype, and he said that they lost power in the house. So he will not be coming back just yet. I will take off the Skype so that nobody sees all of that. And if he does get power back, then he'll be back. But if not, then I guess that will be it for Skim on the show. So thanks. You can find him at Skim Gaming. He is, honestly, I think, a very well-informed expert on shuffles and team dynamics, and definitely somebody worth checking out and following. So that said, though, you really have to question, when a captain is making choices, how does that affect the team? How much does emotional connection, how much does willingness to chat, willingness to sort of get along really come into play? And I think that it's a lot. So it's unfortunate that that happened in EG. I think that it's business, and it has to become business, and that's just the way it is. So, guys, that's about all that we have for the show today. I discussed most of what we wanted to discuss. As we continue to find out news about the shuffle, I will bring it to you as I sort of know what's going on. But we've gone over everything that can be confirmed, or at least has a couple of people talking about it. I do caution you to not get too caught up in the rumors that are flying around. Remember last year, there was trolling. This year, there will be trolling. There's a hacker running rampant, taking over players' accounts left and right. So a lot of crazy stuff is going on that I think that we can read and we can have a good time with, but we have to be aware of. The other big thing and the other caution I gave you guys is, remember this. Paul actually tweeted it out, Red Eye. He said, this is a lot of fun for us as fans to watch this chaos. Yes, it's not fun when our player gets kicked from a team we love, but it's sort of fun to see the drama and make the guesses and see who's right and who's wrong. It's a lot like the Compendium was. However, this is life and career for these players. So we do have to be aware of that. There's much as we love to talk about it. It's not easy to be put in the situations that they are. So let's show a little bit of love. I think the shout-out thread to Aoi was cool. Tweeting at him and saying that we believe that you are a great player, we'll find somewhere to land is fine. But we have to be careful with sort of what we put out there. But I guess that's it. That's my moral message for the day. This is the show, a new episode of Coffee with Toffees. We'll have another one coming at you next week. Guys, the shuffle ends on Friday next week. So we will probably do the show on Saturday instead of the Friday show, just because it would be pointless to do it right before the shuffle numbers come in. And we'll also have a show on Tuesday as well, just to give you an update, kind of filling you in on what's going on. So make sure you follow me at Toffees_Dota2. If you want to support the show, we don't have any monetary sponsors this month. All of the sponsors that were paying for spots left during TI because we went to a show for a month. So if you want to sponsor the show, email me. If you want to donate, you can go to patreon.com/Toffees_Dota2. My sincerest apologies about that. Oh, and it looks like we got Skim coming back in.
Hello.
Hey, there he is. So we'll bring Skim back for just a minute so that he can say goodbye to everybody.
Aw.
That said, though, guys, you can support the show over there if you want to help keep it running, pay for the costs of keeping this bad boy up. Shout out to Razor, who does give us all of our equipment, and Betway, who I think this is the last month that we're going to be working together, and I want to give them a couple of bonus shout outs because they've been very good to us the last few months. Skim, I appreciate you being on the show. I think your insights were incredibly valuable. Where can these folks find you?
Thanks. Yeah, people can find me on Twitter at Skim Gaming. This is where I fiend. And yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. And to clarify, guys, when I said no sponsors, Razor gives me equipment, not cash. So I do appreciate all the equipment. It's been crazy helpful, but it does not pay for hosting. And Betway.com did pay to be a sponsor up until about 2 months ago. And I made a deal with them that I would only do half of a month before TI and then give them a couple extra shows on the back end. But our contract has expired. So just full disclosure, I've always said I will have full disclosure with you guys on any income the show makes, because Skim, if I stand by the fact that teams should be disclosing earning statements and player salaries, I should stand by the fact that my show should be doing the same. So
That's true.
I'm a big fan of transparency in esports. I think it's something that we all need. Love it or hate it, agree or disagree, it's up to you, but that's where it stands. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks, Skim, for being here. Make sure you guys tune in next week. Have a wonderful day, and as always, Toffees out.